Hello, everyone, and welcome to Simple Solutions to Deploy True Multi-Tenancy to Kubernetes Clusters. My name is William Bell, Executive Vice President of Products, and today I have an illustrious crew with me that's going to talk about a great solution between phoenixNAP, Bare Metal Cloud, and the Avesha product. I've got Raj Nair, co-founder of Avesha, Dheeraj Ravula, Head of Customer Success, and Peter Marr, our awesome Director of Channel Sales. So let's jump right into it. Everyone knows that this market for Kubernetes is on fire, right? And we see organizations across the globe planning for and implementing containers on Kubernetes at immense scale. So, the statistic from CNCF here says 93% of global organizations looking at using containers in production. A large subset of that are going to be looking at Kubernetes and or deploying on Kubernetes. And we're starting to see that in our customer base, the phoenixNAP customer base as a whole, whether they're colo or cloud customers, everyone's looking at containers seriously, distributed computing seriously, and most of that is happening on Kubernetes today. And really it gives you just a ton of advantages. You're looking at the ability to structure, and plan, compose, and deliver your applications anywhere. And that is huge agility for organizations that are trying to leverage their IT prowess to differentiate and grow their business. The best way that these organizations have found in the face of all the craziness that we are dealing with in the world today has been to use technology to be more agile, to drive growth and to drive revenue. And I just think that the container ecosystem and Kubernetes specifically are going to play a huge role in that. And technologies like we're going to talk about today are going to make it easy for partners, MSPs, and even large enterprises to manage Kubernetes at scale, secure, contain, and have a predictable experience from Kubernetes. And I think if you're using Kubernetes already today, or if you started testing it, kind of privately, you'll find that maybe that's not as easy as you thought it would be, right? And so there's going to be a lot of room for technologies to come in and really make that easier for organizations as we go. So we're going to start a poll, and we're going to ask everybody, do you see the value in helping your clients extend their compute environments to any cloud or data center edge, right? And I think that ultimately, we are hoping that organizations are looking at and considering the idea of scaling their applications to be more functional and usable by groups and different either groups internally or customers that are deployed around the globe. And really what everyone believes essentially is that containerization of applications is allowing organizations to be more flexible with where they want to host these applications, not only where, but the types of infrastructure they want to host it on and what problem they're trying to solve by doing that. So ultimately, we see kind of an array of challenges with Kubernetes, but I'm going to try to break it down for our partners on the call, right? So when you are an MSP and you're looking at the idea of offering Kubernetes services to your customers, one of the key challenges, something you don't deal with today with virtualization or hypervisor-based environments, the ability to tenantize Kubernetes just doesn't exist in the native vanilla kind of deployments of Kubernetes today. There are a lot of challenges that exist in ensuring that each one of your clients can get a secure, controlled environment with which to deploy their applications, or for which you can deploy applications for your customers, and ensure that they're not inadvertently interacting with someone else's data or someone else's network. And so what we see today, and in fact, if you look at our solution like Bare Metal Cloud today, prior to our partnership with Avesha, you are in a position where you have to essentially deploy a single cluster per tenant. Yes, you can use a management control plane that might be span across multiple different clusters, but at minimum, for you to get that higher level of assurance, you have to invest in dedicated Kubernetes clusters for each one of your tenants, right? And you know, when you look at what Avesha is doing, you're in a position now where you can take a single cluster and deploy each one of those 5 tenant apps to that single cluster, which is giving you efficiency that you don't have today, right? Real efficiency. So when we're going to talk a little bit more about that later, but when you combine the cost effectiveness of phoenixNAP BMC, the instantaneous delivery, and the ability to take a product like Avesha and become ultra efficient with that infrastructure, you put yourself in a really powerful position to help your customers and to be cost efficient for yourself and management efficient for yourself. And so Avesha solves a lot of problems. I think tenancy is one of these that is like the overarching capability, but taking and creating policies, synchronizing configurations, inter-networking between clusters, and providing that high level of observability across multi-cluster environments is what Avesha is expertise, right? That's what they're doing. What you're going to see today are critical capabilities that make this product fantastic. And I'm going to move on to my next slide. I'm going to introduce Raj, one of the co-founders at Avesha. He's going to take us through their product in a little bit more depth, and then we're going to see a demo of their product here in a little bit as well. So go ahead, Raj.
Yeah, thank you, William. That was great. And just like William had said, the core value that we are bringing is this ability for you to take your clusters and basically slice it up and use each of these slices for whatever business purpose or application you need to. For example, as this slide is showing, where let's say your customer is a SaaS and he has to have multiple enterprises as his customers on his infrastructure. Well, he can easily, with our product, you can slice up your infrastructure and provide it to each customer, and they would easily be able to operate in their slice. They will not impede on the others. They're completely isolated, and from policies and from the resources all the way down to the network level, completely isolated. So then it becomes much easier for you to essentially get more value out of your investment in the infrastructure and be able to be more flexible. This sort of capability, it is possible to do it manually, with all sorts of tricks, but it's going to be a lot of work. And what we have done with our product is automate it so that you can just simply have any number of slices across any number of clusters. And we take care of the synchronization, the interconnection, and the policies and isolation. All of these, we take care of it entirely, so that in an automated manner, so that you can start using your infrastructure effectively. And for example, in this slide, we have these three enterprises, A, B, and C. I mean, they're like, we call them like Coke, HBO, and Boeing, just for examples. And they, and let's say you have these clusters, data center cluster, something on phoenixNAP, and then GCP, and wherever you want, you can essentially together combine these and then slice it up and provide it to these enterprise A, B, and C, and they would be able to operate independently of each other. And the beauty of it is all done from a simple UI. So it's a very easy way for you to deploy. Can go to the next. Thanks. Yeah, William, can you advance to the next slide? That's fine. Yeah, no. Previous one, sorry. Yeah, thank you. So in this slide, what we're saying is that in the same way as we showed in the previous slide, let's say you have a large enterprise, okay, and they don't have, they don't have the same needs as a SaaS customer, but they do have multiple teams, and that these teams are operating, like you have the HR team, the payroll team, and some other hiring team, and these guys they have their own apps, and they want to deploy it, independently of each other from policy standpoint or chargeback controls, all that. So how would you do that? Well, again, you can use the same mechanism, the slice, because you have that ability to have separate accounting for each of these, and so they can be on, whether it's development clusters or staging clusters or production clusters. They can have their own piece of it and use it any which way they want without affecting others. And this takes into account all the resource constraints and everything. So you can have, even at the node level, you can have a separation so that there is absolutely no way that one can impede the other. And so this is the beauty of this. And next slide. So here, what we're saying is, even if it is a single cluster and you want to have the ability to slice it, you can do the same thing. Once again, it handles everything, including the namespaces and resource limits, and gives you better visibility and observability. So from a user endpoint, end user standpoint, it is going to be much easier because it's a self-serve where you can go to the UI, spin up your own slice, and you will be following the policies set by the operations team. So that's the beauty of this. And again, it's the ease of use that we are bringing, which is the most important value for an MSP. So can go to the next slide. Yeah, next slide, please. So at the end of the day, why do we say this is multi-tenancy is critical to be competitive in a B2B or SaaS marketplace? Is because of these reasons. That is, first and foremost, you can avoid cluster sprawl, and you don't have to, for every time you need isolation, go spin up a cluster. Very soon, not only you will be spending a lot more, you find it very difficult to manage, and there's so many clusters. So it's almost essential to have multi-tenancy. And furthermore, the other important aspect is that you get the development velocity, at least for your customers, because now they can have teams, each isolated, so that when one team is doing its testing or some other phase of development, it does not affect the other teams who are also on the same cluster but on a different slice. That isolation we are able to achieve with our solution. So that is very, very important from a development velocity, and this will allow them to create slices again on their own and improve their velocity without having to depend on an IT resource. What is not multi-tenancy is, as you can see, there are solutions there which are simply based on namespace, but not enough. Again, especially in Kubernetes, you have everything defined for one cluster. The moment you go to different clusters, you have to manually synchronize the resources and RBAC across these clusters. Otherwise, and that can soon get into a drift situation where you have differences in policies and there's nothing keeping watch on that. This is what our solution does, is constantly providing you this secure application zone, and that will allow you to do continuous deployment. And so it'll always maintain that isolation continuously, so that you don't have the issue of these nosy neighbor or noisy neighbor. You don't have the issue where the traffic is all commingled. All of that is completely maintained so that you get this very clear and clean multi-tenancy. Yeah, I can go to the next slide. So, if I were to sum it up with one slide, what I just said, at the end of the day, what you have is, multi-tenancy has these three important aspects. So the isolation that you're achieving between the tenants, the observability, particularly when you're having multiple clusters and they're all over the place, you want to have one place of looking at this whole tenant or tenancy. And then lastly, the aspect, of course, as I said, the interconnection for the multi-cluster. Now, if you take each of these in turn, if I take isolation, well, what am I saying? You're getting isolation from a QoS standpoint for resources, and also like network resource, and also the CPU resource. So those are the isolation that we are giving you. The other thing is, for observability, what we're saying is we give you a self-service. So you have autonomy. You as a team can go and observe your own slice at any time or alter it. All of this, you can do it directly from a UI. And finally, from a multi-cluster standpoint, we give you the ability to federate all of your slices. What does that mean? That means that the cohesive policy is maintained across all of these clusters, and relieves you of that headache of wondering whether you were somewhere allowed some policy misconfiguration. That is ruled out. And finally, the efficiency that you're going to get by having you avoid the cluster sprawl and maintain a very efficient operation. So with that, I will turn it back to William.
Thank you so much, Raj. Yeah, I mean, I think that what we see our MSPs as they're looking at Kubernetes, like I said at the beginning of the call, there's a lot of you that are in the hypervisor ecosystem today. You're used to a thick hypervisor taking care of a lot of these things for you. And then there's been 20 years of tools developed around those hypervisors to help you deliver multi-tenancy and isolation. And the reality of Kubernetes is that today by itself, native vanilla Kubernetes and even the major distributions out there, they're just not inherently multi-tenant in any way, shape, or fashion. So you have to look at technologies like Avesha to help you reach that level of security that is kind of the standard that you have today for your customers, right? I think that's the key challenge, is that your customers in the thick VM world or physical server world expect this today. You have to be able to replicate this in a microservices nature. And so, what we're doing from a trying to deliver all of this together is we want to be able, from a phoenixNAP perspective, to be able to help our MSP partners leverage technologies like Avesha on the most cost-effective computing platform available on the market. And that is what we think will drive and deliver results for our MSPs. And so when you're looking at all of these different application services that you want to offer your customers, applications that you're deploying for them, architecting and implementing them across cluster can be very, very challenging. And securing all of that as well can be very, very challenging. And so when you look at the technologies that are built from partners like Avesha, you are in a position now to take this fleet of infrastructure that contains all of your customers and manage all of it from a single pane of glass from the GUI, right? And really drive the efficiency that I talked about at the beginning through to your bottom line. Because for the partners on the call, MSPs on the call, you know 100% that hosting and people are probably your two biggest cost drivers, right? And if you can do more with less people, and if you can have a lower cost of infrastructure, you're in a much better position to be successful financially and to help your customers in ways that maybe they didn't think that you were even capable of. So I'm gonna throw up another poll question real quick. And we're gonna ask everybody here, you know, what are the main challenges if you've already started looking at Kubernetes? Like, what are the main challenges that you're facing in managing multiple clusters today? I would assume, you know, you're in a position where, as an organization, you're helping your customers through challenges that, you know, I actually don't know if this poll got actually out there. If anybody can click on the poll for me, that'd be great. There we go. All right, just make sure we're working. So, you know, the challenges that most people face when they're looking at this managing multiple clusters is really, I would say, security and cost overruns, right? And management complexity. I think those three are the big ones for us. And so I'm just going to give it another couple of seconds here, let everybody click, and then we're actually going to see this. We're going to see this in real life. Dhiraj, that runs customer success over at Avesha, he's going to actually walk us through a quick demo of their solution and how it works. And then I am going to head over to the next demo slide here, and then I'm going to give the ball to Dhiraj so he can take us through what this looks like, and then I'll come back and try to tie it all together, and we'll hear from our director of partnerships as well, so you can you know, understand who you can contact and what kind of value it might have for you. So go ahead, Dhiraj, take it away.
Can you guys see my screen?
I think it's still loading.
You see it? Show my screen.
There it goes. We got it.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. Just wanted to kind of tie what you've heard so far with the value of phoenixNAP and Avesha's KubeSlice solution, and kind of give you a visual, right, of what are the capabilities that come with our enterprise version of the software. So Raj probably forgot to mention, but we recently open sourced our product. So the core product that drives this innovation is actually an open source product. So you're free. Please, we do encourage all of you to kind of download it, see it for yourself, run it in your own labs, and give us feedback. And more importantly, I think this will be a great project for you to contribute towards as well. So what you're seeing today is more of our enterprise version of the software that comes with this GUI, right? The GUI that's intention is to kind of make it easy for you to operate these slices, right? Kind of bring that value of running Kubernetes services, microservices across the edges, right? This is not a futuristic solution. We know with the deployment of 5G, with the increasing use of edge nodes to bring business value propositions to enterprises as well as telcos, this is a real proposition. It is more of the compute and resources are getting deployed closer to the end users, closer to the business use cases that are being solved. So this is a real problem, right? Being able to deploy services close to the edge, but not only that, make those services available to multiple edges, and also acknowledge that a lot of business use cases are not static cases, meaning the traffic will shift from edge to edge, right? And the KubeSlice from Avesha and the cost reduction that you get from deploying to bare metal, right? The goal is you should be able to run your workloads anywhere, where it makes sense, right? Closer to the customer for business cases that need low latency, in bare metal clouds where you have to reduce costs of ownership of running these solutions, right? So this combination and how Avesha Slice kind of enables you to do this with a lot of ease. Right? That was kind of the goal for the UI, is to enable what you can do through APIs on the open source, do it with the self-service nature of the GUI. So we've talked about how you can deploy solutions across clusters, be able to manage it, observe it, and make that operations easy. That's the goal of the product, as well as how do we use multi-tenancy to reduce the cost of ownership for these solutions. So what you see here is an example business use case I kind of created for us to maybe get a feel for what a real use case looks like, right? What we're also seeing is as we engage more customers and MSPs, the power of this KubeSlice is actually opening up new conversations of how do you use the KubeSlice to create business values. And I'm expecting that as you start discovering KubeSlice, you will also probably start these discussions with your customers and find unique ways of bringing value propositions in terms of lowering cost and deploying solutions that are agile, right? They are dynamic, they're orchestratable, and they are automatable, right? That's where the industry is heading, and that's not a nice to have, it's a must have going forward. So what you see here is we basically created 2 clusters and a management cluster that hosts the control layer of Avesha. And you can see how even though the services are deployed across multiple clusters, you get a single pane of glass, right? That gives you a quick summary of how many clusters are running, how many slices did we create. In this case, the slice represents a tenant, right? And how many nodes are consumed, how many namespaces have been deployed, how many services are running across all of these clusters. So if you look at the logical view of the same thing, pardon the naming, it's not real word, but we have scripts that automate a lot of this stuff. So that's why it shows me, because we need to know it's my clusters that I have to ultimately destroy later, right? So in this case, you see 2 clusters and a slice for Coke, a slice for HBO, and a slice for Pepsi that was generated. And this is representing 3 different tenants. And in this one example, Coke and Pepsi happen to have a single application that they are running as part of the service, and HBO has 2. So they've basically deployed it in 2 different namespaces. Right? The same thing, if you start kind of looking at what the slice does, it gives you a very quick visual view of what the Coke slice is encapsulating, right? It's encapsulating 2 pods. The HBO slice is running an encoder and a sports app, consuming 2 slides, and the Pepsi has got 1 app running on 2 pods. So the UI kind of gives you that operational view, right? Ease being able to observe your services across multiple clusters. Sometimes it's difficult just to manage 1 cluster. Imagine the complexity that gets involved when you start deploying these services across multiple clusters. I'm going to jump a little bit into the slice because it ties into, oh, sorry, I didn't expect this to happen. Take a little more of a complex slice. So what the slice is showing is the services for HBO being deployed in 2 of the clusters. And from a service discoverability perspective, it's got 2 of our gateways running on the slice. So something interesting you can notice is from an observability perspective, you can see that the slice is running encoders in both the cluster. They're also running sports data in both the clusters. This is kind of a sample of maybe a redundant system that's set up to, let's say, to create a service that's needed for a period of time where one of the edges is acting as a backup or an active backup. And the traffic can move between these 2 slices, these 2 clusters, but act like it is being serviced as part of a single single service. So this one is more from an observability perspective, gives you a single pane of glass that helps you kind of monitor and observe how the slices and the resources are performing. Again, different views of the same thing, your node level visualization of what is running in each of your nodes in the cluster. A service dependency graph. The services that we deployed are fairly simple, so you don't see much of a dependency of one service from the other. But when you deploy applications that have service dependencies, you'll start seeing those graphs here. And from an operational perspective, so typically when you build your infrastructure, you would deploy multiple clusters as part of the service. However, for each tenant, you might or might not include all of the downstream clusters as part of the service. For example, Coke might only want edge clusters in Atlanta, and Pepsi might pick the New York area as where they would focus for some of their services. But as an MSP, as somebody who's offering this as a service, you might have clusters both in Atlanta and New York, but then you might have other clusters that you are building that you might not make it as part of the slice. So what we give you is an easy way to register downstream clusters that you want to partake in a slice with the aim of letting you select for each tenant which slices to operate on. So for example, you can pick the Coke slice and only include in it the clusters in Atlanta. And for Pepsi, you could include only the clusters in New York. And then you can onboard each of these slices to the connected cluster. In this example, I only had 2 clusters, so I essentially added the clusters for all of the tenants, Coke, HBO, and Pepsi. But you can easily envision a use case where some of these tenants might not want to be deployed in multiple clusters. Maybe they only want to be deployed on one, or maybe more than the others, right? So that flexibility of being able to add clusters to a slice at the tip of your fingers, I mean, it's the kind of simplicity and ease that we want to bring to managing services deployed across clusters. I think we also touched on how a slice not only gives you tenancy, but also gives you a way to isolate the traffic between the slices, meaning the traffic of Coke cannot intermingle with the traffic of HBO or Pepsi. Right? The slice, the underlying infrastructure, creates an overlay network. And what that does is also simplifies how you deploy these services across clusters, how it simplifies the IP planning that typically needs to be done when you're deploying applications into multiple clusters. Right? The IP conflict resolution automatically happens with Avesha's KubeSlice. So these are just examples of how we've simplified management of multi-tenant, multi-cluster deployment of services. And it also shows how we've isolated these tenant traffic and resources to give you that true multi-tenancy.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Diraj, for showing us everything. You know, like I mentioned earlier, it's simple, it's easy, and it's something that you can kind of get started with quickly. And, you know, it is a better together solution, right? I think that if we look at, you know, what we're doing in bare metal cloud today, trying to help our partners get ultra efficient and get high performance, low cost, having a technology like Avesha that layers on top of that and allows you to just speed up everything. Provisioning of Kubernetes clusters, provision and management, networking integrations and interconnection. All those things are done in a much easier fashion, right? And it's truly this kind of like 1 + 1 = 4, right? And I think that, when we are talking with our customers about what what our large enterprise customers can do to help solve some of these challenges, I think that Avesha is going to be a key solution in our ecosystem that for clients deploying production workloads at scale on top of bare metal cloud. So we're going to make it simple. We're going to give you true multi-tenancy, all of that monitoring and observability love that you need, especially in Kubernetes, because it can be very daunting if you're not doing something in that area. Getting all these applications connected to each other across clusters, potentially across regions, it really can be time-consuming and troublesome, even for people that are really good at Kubernetes. So I think that when you look at Avesha's product on top of BMC, you're getting the best of both worlds. And to try to make that real for you, the people that are here at the webinar today, we're going to give you an actual $100 of BMC infrastructure, along with a month of Avesha's multi-cloud functionality in their enterprise product to allow you to test this out yourself. Apologies for the cost there. The $100, if you're not familiar with BMC, it goes a long way. You can set up multiple systems for weeks and actually not exhaust that, as well as our partner team can take care of getting more in-depth POCs validated as well if you want to try to do something with more structure. But you can actually try this out. You can download it, you can install it, you can get it going, and then we'll work with the Avesha team to get you the licenses that you need so that you can try out all their enterprise functionality on top of our bare metal cloud platform. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Peter. He's going to talk a little bit about our MSPs and what's in it for them, as well as handle our Q&A system. Go ahead and take it away, Pete.
Excellent. Thanks.
Can I add one little thing about the promo, right?
Sure.
Yeah, go for it, Raj.
Just a single stint. So what we're finding is, as we engage customers and MSPs, the KubeSlice is unlocking a lot of value, right? So the promo is really designed to help you identify business cases that brings value to your customer. And with phoenixNAP, we will do everything possible to kind of customize some of these POCs that you need for your customers, right? So that's kind of why we're saying we're behind this. We will support you with any customer, new business use case you bring, and we'll do it fully, right? Meaning if you bring use cases, we'll build it for you. We will show it working. That way you can kind of showcase this towards your customers.
Excellent, excellent stuff. Thanks, William, and the Avesha team, Raj and Raj, for really interesting and very exciting stuff, right? And I think earlier in the presentation, I think there was a statistic up that said 93% of organizations globally are moving in this direction for this type of distributed compute and clusters, right? So, whether you are a VAR, a system integrator, an MSP, or just a selling agent, right? You all have value to your marketplace, and I think we all on this call would agree that the biggest challenge that we are all faced with is how do I continue to differentiate myself in the marketplace as a seller, right? Add value to the clients that you're trying to orchestrate in the marketplace. And really, I think what you're seeing here today on today's call is exactly that, the tools and the resources that Avesha and phoenixNAP bring to the table to help your organizations really better serve your clients, really enhance the value you deliver to those clients, whether it's just for distributed compute, if it's cost stabilization. There's a lot of different ways to engage with this type of scenario for your clients to help not only them solve their challenges, but most importantly, as we all like to say in the channel, win more business together, right? So that is really some interesting stuff. And if there's any questions, if you have any concerns, if you think you may have some opportunities, please go ahead and utilize the POV that we've got in here that you just saw on the previous slide. If you're not sure of how to do it or how to engage with it, reach out to the phoenixNAP channel team, and you can certainly reach out to us directly at partners@phoenixnap.com, and we're all here to help you through the process to help grow and solve for the challenges that your partners or your clients are facing in your partnership. Will, if you want to go on to the next slide. Poll question. Okay, so let's see. Would you, there you go. Would you like to have a follow-up conversation with phoenixNAP and Avesha experts to help you understand where it is in the marketplace? So simply please select one of the three categories. I would imagine, let's root for a lot of people selecting that they want to hear from this. I think we'll give it another minute or so and get the tallies coming in.
Yeah, I'll mention that if either one you click on, if you want to talk to both of us, just tell the other one, and because we're gonna reach out based on who clicks on what. So
exactly, right. I was just gonna mention that you don't have to just reach out to phoenixNAP or Avesha. We can do, and we'll set up once we finish the poll here and we coordinate the data. Making sure we get you with the right folks so you can ask the right questions pertaining to your client base. Excellent. I think we should be close to the poll, Will.
All right, Pete, let's do this.
All right, let's see if we have some Q&A coming in here. Let's tee that up. It looks like we've got a few questions. Will, you want me to just read them out loud?
Yeah, why don't you give us the first one that looks the best?
So the question is, can I deploy to multiple tenants at the same time? I think that was spoken about earlier in the show, and I think a few people were maybe having challenges getting in. But Will, do you want to address that real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think maybe possibly missing that at the beginning. It's the key. It is the key component of Avesha. It's one of the key components of Avesha and the KubeSlice technology. I think it's core to being successful as an MSP. And I don't know, Raj, if you want to comment on this. I mean, what would you say multi-tenancy and efficient multi-tenancy, you would consider that a core functionality of Avesha product, right?
Absolutely. And in fact, that is our core principle. And absolutely, we allow you to deploy in parallel or concurrently, multiple tenants, and that is what gives you that efficiency, and that's an important principle for our product.
Excellent, excellent. And the next question we have here is, let's see, can you explain how you provide security for the applications and workloads that are in a multi-tenant cluster?
Absolutely. So, yeah, happy to answer that. So we look at the security from multiple angles, and so all the way from the policies of the resources that you're allocating, so that you don't there's some bad actor doesn't starve off all the other tenants, so we're able to restrict that. And then the other angle is the RBAC, and making sure that the actual access controls are the same in all the clusters where your slice is. And then also the networking level, where we make sure that you're limited to the amount of bandwidth that you're supposed to get, so that you don't try to again squeeze out the others. So we provide a comprehensive security from various threat vectors, and ensure that the slice is completely secure from the application, access controls, resource utilization, and networking, so that your application is literally truly isolated from any other applications or tenants that are occupying the same clusters.
Excellent, excellent. And well, we have one more question if you want me to go ahead and read it out loud, and it pertains to digital transformation. So the question is, can you further explain how you are simplifying a customer's digital transformation journey with the use of Avesha's KubeSlices on BMC, which is phoenixNAP's BMC?
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Raj. You give an answer, and then I'll try to tie it up with some infrastructure insights.
Absolutely. I mean, I was just going to say that because of the isolation that we're providing, and so on your in your digital transformation, you might have a need, for example, to have a footprint on-prem and a footprint in a cloud. And this is something that is very easy to do with the KubeSlice, because we actually allow you to, we give you that connectivity and it's automated, and you can apply, you can do things like you could have, you know, certain services that you are doing it one at a time, and different microservices, and you peel away one, you put it on a cloud, and it'll just operate just like you would, you know, there's nothing special you have to do. The rest of your application can easily reach that. The discoverability, everything is handled. Remember, what you get is a completely Kubernetes native deployment. So your applications on the on your data center can easily see the application that has been put in the cloud. So you can literally, you know, one by one, do this transformation, and it will be painless and completely automated. And this is what the KubeSlice lets you do. And go ahead, William.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that it's definitely when we look at getting the most out of the most out of the infrastructure that you're deploying, a core component of that is density, right? And density without sacrificing on the performance side. And I think that ultimately, you know, when we see organizations trying to take all these steps into digital transformation, refactoring, building new applications, right? Containerizing existing applications. All of that, if you don't take a conscious approach to how it's executed, can be very costly and be difficult to execute at a minimum, right? And so technologies like Avesha solve a lot of challenges for organizations and or MSPs that are in charge of the IT of organizations, helping that company really get to the next level without risking a lot in terms of failure or cost overruns. And I think that's where we really tie everything up, right? Where you are looking at an infrastructure solution in BMC that pound for pound is significantly less than public cloud infrastructure services. And you have great partners like Avesha that are bringing logical constructs to those metal instances and storage exports that are helping you create a digital platform for your customer or for your company if you're an end user from IT end user enterprise. So yeah, I think that that's the best summary of the webinar that I can give, to be honest. And I think that, you know, we're in a position right now where if you have anything that you want to talk about, as Roger mentioned, we can bring resources to bear that will help you plan not only a POC, but what it would look like if you wanted to take that effort into production. And really get as custom as you need. Especially, you know, Avesha, that's their absolute day in and day out, right? They're working with organizations and implementing their product. And bare metal cloud has so much extensibility that allows you to implement in the way you want to from an infrastructure perspective. It really is that better together story. I want to thank my co-presenters, Raj and Dheeraj from Avesha, and Peter from our channel team. I hope that everyone has a great rest of their day, and we look forward to speaking to everyone as soon as you are ready. Thank you.